Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So today is 10th of September, if I believe it's correct, 2022. Tomorrow is a special day. Tomorrow is my elder sister's birthday. And she will turn 44. Most of you will know her, who lives here. It's the one with the 2 kids that comes every year, except the COVID years. And just a couple of days ago, Ajahn Narindo asked me whether I can give a talk. And it was a very interesting experience. I'm apparently the newest addition into the team where Ajahn Narindo can ask whether I can give a talk. And that brings me back actually to a time when I was, more nervous about this thing. It's like when I was 18, it's like more than 20 years ago. After my secondary school from the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, let's continue. Like after the secondary school, when I was 18, I went to America for a year. And for 1 year, and I applied for university there. And at the time, I was very, maybe a bit ambitious and eager, and so I would call myself stupid now, but at the time it was very proactive about things, and I signed myself for third-year classes, even though I was 18 and I was just sort of like a student. I could sign up for any classes in that university, and I was very overzealous, and I signed up for something called Class 301, if you know the American system, third-year class, and called Management Skills. And in that class, what they try to teach you is how to present in front of the class, and speaking abilities, and writing, and presentations. And I remember I think the second or third class, one of the things was quite soon any one of us in that little group of 20, 30 people have to stand in front of the class. You have to imagine I'm Dutch, and I grew up in Holland, and I know Dutch enough, but in my time, the Dutch school system doesn't really teach you how to present. So I think maybe less than 5 times in my whole 18 years through the primary school and secondary school, I stand in front of the class and then explain something. And each time I remember it was quite nerve-wracking. So I find myself in a foreign country, in a foreign language, at a class that was maybe a bit too difficult for me. Standing in front of the class to present something. And I do remember I typed it all out, what I wanted to say. It's a piece of A4, and I was standing in front of the class and I was like, and I was sort of trying to read through, and I couldn't breathe properly, and I was just like trying to get it to finish. And I remember my mind told me something like, "Wow, I still feel so sorry for you, for myself, for this," and somehow my mind, I don't know how your mind works. My mind says like, I never want to experience this again, and I have to conquer this. I have to make sure that I know how to do this. So I made a pact with myself that each time in the classroom, I was for the 1 year in America, if someone will ask in a group, so normally you work in a group with 3 or 4 people, and someone like, who wants to present? And I told myself, if anyone asks that, I'll say, yes, me, So during that whole year, I do remember at the end of the year, I felt a bit more confident. I went through a lot of this kind of shaky and nervous and not being able to breathe, and, this kind of, I had it just now as well, but sort of like a nervous sense, and, what's going to happen now, But that is something that I sort of got used to it, something that it's unpleasant, but something that doesn't last as well. That I also noticed that, uncomfortable feelings or because of situations. And that's how I sort of programmed my mind, let's say, or conditioned my mind to address these things. And I do remember at the time when I went back to the Netherlands after the year, I enrolled in one of the programs in Holland, and after the second year there, the program that organizes it nominated myself and another classmate to speak in front of the new years. So we will be second year, and then the new first year will come. And I said, yeah, of course, no problem, I'll do it. And I don't really think too much about it. And then a few months passed, and you have to, maybe a few months, maybe a few weeks. It was before the summer holidays. We start in August, September again. And I remember this classmate of mine. She was very clever, actually. She was the top of the class. And she sent me, I think, to me it felt like a few months ago, but maybe it was just a few weeks ago before we were supposed to present. Sent me an email saying something like, oh, can you send me a slideshow? Like, we do, I was a business student, so it was a lot about PowerPoints. But, make slides. And I'm like, why now? Like, why would I do it now? We haven't even thought about it. And then I'll say, okay, you want to be cooperative. And then I sent her, something vague, let's say. And I sent it over, and I thought, okay, that's fine. And then a few weeks later, I think, close to the date, he asked me something like, "Oh, right, should we meet up on the day itself to practice?" I'm like, "Practice? Okay, let's practice." And then he suggested something like 2 or 3 hours in advance or something. That's what my recollection is. Maybe it's just 1 hour, but I was like, "What do we need to practice for 2 or 3 hours in advance?" So I'm like, "Okay, whatever. We can do that." And they don't want to be, just adapt. So I went there. I remember it was at the college. It was sort of like a canteen. So we entered the canteen, and I was like, trying to make that time. And most probably I was a few minutes late. And I saw her sitting there, with these cards. She held all these cards and stuff. And I went there. I was like, oh God, I'm not prepared. Because I just had an idea of what they want to say. So luckily, she asked me already for these slides, and I reviewed those slides, and then I went there. And I remember what she did. She did sort of like, okay, she actually also accepted my sort of unpreparedness. So she had all these prepared, like what she wanted to say, and when to say something, and if this slide counts, what to say. And we were doing this kind of practice session. So she says, like, okay, I will start off first, and we'll say this and this and this. And then what do you say? I was like, I have to sort of made it up, and I will look at the slides. So during that time, we were, I don't know, I think we were far more than prepared. Afterwards, like, oh, okay, good, it's going to start. So both of us walked to the college hall and opened the door. I remember opening the door, I sort of opened the door and I saw the sea of people, like 200-300 students. I was like, oh, God. And then in the front, there was the worst part. There was all these deacons of the university, and everyone was sitting there, in this proper clothing. I was like, oh, God, I should have prepared better. So as soon as I opened the door, my heart was like getting, sweating. So I sort of, very uncomfortable. You walk up there and find a space to sit, and I was like, I couldn't really speak anymore, talk. And then, and I wasn't really finished doing that. And then our names were called, right? Wendy and my son, my lay name. Oh, gotta go down. And then we started, and then I start to, what is the English word? Brabbling? Like this Dutch word, like you just start mumbling and start saying something, and you don't really know what you're saying, and you start saying something sort of correct. And luckily we prepared a bit, so I didn't know what I was saying. But then when I start mumbling, often I say things unintentionally, then the words that sort of get connected different meanings, and I have that all the time because I'm not so prepared. And then suddenly everyone is laughing. I'm like, what did I say, And then she was laughing as well. I never found out what I said wrong, or did I said something funny. But I do remember that moment of the first minutes. It's like really uncomfortable, and then I don't really know what to say. But after a while, with any presentation I've seen, and after that I've done many more times. I present smaller and bigger groups. that the nervousness gets lesser over, like in the beginning it's a bit nervous. And it still was like that, like just before I started meditation. It's like, I don't know what I'm going to say. And but I trust my own mind. My own mind is very restless, very... if you could see in my mind, it's very active, There's a lot of things being told. I tell myself a lot, but there's a lot of messages coming in my mind. And I trust that in the sense of, when I sit there, I will get worried and get nervous, and then things will come up, and it's like, oh yeah, that's good to talk about. And that usually helps me. So I usually have, as people know me, I have never have enough things. I have always things to say. My life has always been around, I have enough things to say, but I'm not sure if you have the time to listen. That's usually my problem. And during this time, one of the things that came up was for me that I could see that I thought I would like to share something what I sort of thought about and how my mind works, and how that sort of, how I struggle with it and challenge myself also here, how to live my life. And one of the quotes that came up, I thought was really clever. It was, "The mind is the forerunner of all things." That's correct. The Dhammapada, number 1. I was like, oh, let's throw that one in. And I could see that, like with my mind, I think for maybe a projection on myself, a lot of people might think I'm very restless. I think that's true. Very active, talkative, nosy, like to meddle in people's business and ask people questions, maybe also nothing to do with you, or with me actually, that I should not know, but I tend to do that. And maybe for some people that know me less and don't talk to me less, I'm the one that runs around the monastery in all corners, and you see me doing things, whatever that is. And in my mind, it is very similar. How I experience it is like, if you compare it to an email box, like I guess we all have emails. One of the examples is that, you have the screen, and you have your email there. Right? And there's all these new emails, in black, darker black. And you sit down there. My mind is like this, right? You sit down there, and it's like, blunk, one more email, blunk, 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 blunk. That's my mind. And it comes with all these thoughts, like, oh, that's great, that's great. And my practice is really to, and I notice that here, because it is very difficult, my practice is really to breathe in, breathe out. Okay, look at that. Okay, don't react. Blunk, 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 blunk. Oh, good idea. What is that? And then, 10 minutes later, you get lost in that whole thing. You're like, oh, out. And then all these messages keep coming up. And it's really hard for me to practice staying here, being with myself here, and just let things happen. And it's also similar to maybe nowadays people have mobile phones, just try to meditate, put your phone like this, turn the sound on, and just let it rip, just let it ding-dong, ding-dong, something like that. That is my mind. And I have to learn to mute it, to mute my mind. And also sort of to disengage, silent mode, put yourself in silent mode or airplane mode, that's all something that these days you can put your phones in. And to me, what really helped a lot was when I came here, and also one of the reasons that I wanted to stay here rather than all the other places, like when I sort of, it was a bit of an accident. I was on my career path, making money and, being ambitious, doing all kinds of things, learning skills and in a commercial setting. And then I came, one of the good things to do was also meditate, according to some things, like things that I read. And I ended up in this retreat center one day, 1 year. And I joined a retreat with Ajahn Narindo and Ajahn Narindo. And the people that know Ajahn Narindo likes to talk about present moment, this moment. So what do you do? This moment. And then, okay, then this moment. And then what? This moment. And that's this whole he talks about, this moment. It's a bit frustrating, but to me, my mind was like, yeah, but what next? What next? And what next? Because my mind is really about always, what next? What is the becoming? What is the next thing that I can do? There's all these things that I want to do, all this energy in my body here that's sort of, coming out. So, just watch it, okay, watch it. And in some strange way, I found a release in there. The sort of peace that I have never actually experienced. I train myself as a lay person very much into a skill and learning things that are maybe difficult, like with speaking. It wasn't clearly when I was 18. It wasn't definitely not something I would like to do. But clearly, because in the business terms, it's called ambitious. You want to learn these skills, and so you move yourself into some uncomfortable. I have no problem after a while to move myself into uncomfortable areas. Like, okay, it's uncomfortable, but let's do it step by step and keep doing it. And that was similarly with meditation. I do remember the good old days when I put the phone there and I put like 10 minutes meditation. I'm not sure if you've done that. You press a timer, click, start, and go and sit down. Okay. Close down the windows and doors, and such a long time, right? It's almost finished, and I look at it. It's 1 minute past. Okay, 30 seconds past. All right. I do remember those times. It was, and I didn't really understand why, what was happening to me. Why did I have to look? And now I can explain it a bit better. I still have that, of course, but maybe after 40 minutes, or after 1 hour, or after. If there's too many messages coming, then I have that maybe quicker. It is that sense of unpleasantness, very feeling, especially in the body. There are these sort of physical sensations that are sort of just unpleasant. You want to move, you want to think about something, you want to do something else, everything except this. And for me to come to peace with it at the time was really about observing it. So you sit down, and then just realizing, for instance, me, restlessness in my own experience is really much about a very unpleasant feeling here in the stomach area, and then tense area coming all the way up, and then the shoulder blades, the neck tense, and then especially here, it's super tense, at the time. So if I was aware of it, and I wasn't aware of it at the beginning, so, you get propelled to think, propelled to do things. But being more aware of these thoughts and, the messages I was talking about, like in the beginning, it's just you're defenseless. Any message that's come in, 1,000 per minute, you can't just avoid them, one after another one. And maybe after some time, you present moment, stay, and you see maybe 2 messages once, not on the first message, but on the second message. And later on the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, it goes on like that. And each time, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of attention, concentration, teeth gritting, to go through that. And what happens then is that the more I was more present, and after I could maybe let's say skip 100 messages before I get distracted, which is like 10 seconds later, is that you also have a chance to see how your body is, how that body, like in my case, the head, so tense, And I couldn't be aware of this tenseness of my head and shoulders because I was so occupied with what is. If I have to visualize it, it's like goggles here, like sort of goggles with a screen, and all these things are coming at you. It was just too occupied here. And then by skipping a few messages, you could suddenly feel how tense all this area is, and this area. And then the more messages I could skip at one time, the more I could feel how the body, how tense it is actually. Each time I have to think and react, and And after a very long while, maybe a few years being here actually, that I could finally sort of sense like this abdomen, especially in the solar plexus here for me, always pushed up. And that's an unpleasant, restless kind of feeling in order to always want to keep doing things, It's just sitting down is not nice. And I do remember when I was 5 or 6, I remember running as a kid, like a room like this, you're running. And then I remember I thought like, why is no one running? Why am I the only one running, But I do remember that it was the body making me to run, and that I had to run because it felt better. Because not running felt like, that's why I feel, when I see kids running nowadays, or I have a more appreciation and understanding of, you just have to let them, they're growing, the body's growing, maybe it's pains, and it's just unpleasant. And by running, it feels better. And I think we as adults, we are trained often, maybe a bit too much, like all of you now, sitting quietly, not moving, in the setting, being quiet. And that's something we train ourselves to do, but that is not maybe it's not maybe in sync with the body. The body might not feel like that. And in the past, I wasn't so aware of my bodily energies. So after a while, being more aware of my bodily energies, I could better sort of less resist it. So if I wasn't so aware, I was sort of pushing it back or sort of holding my stomach or holding this, it was really tense. But after a while, it was more like letting go, what they would call letting go, what I would also sort of signify as letting go, just be, and then even though it sort of poke you let it poke, basically, sort of poke, okay. And then you sort of fight against it a little bit, but immediately sort of, okay, let it be painful or unpleasant. And what happens after a while is that, you get used to that sensation of being poked, being unpleasant here, unpleasant there. And I would say something magically happens in the body, and sort of like after a while, it sort of start feeling a bit more at ease with it. You're okay with this unpleasantness. And then the body feels like it's like the energies of the blood are flowing much more and more easier, like undisturbed. So now often I have these kind of feelings, rather than a pinpoint feeling. It feels more like, and it goes through the head and then back. And it feels very nice. It feels like a bit of like a, I take a hot shower, the water goes down there, it's very nice. And when you're cold, the kind of feeling, sort of like relaxing. And that's how I see it, that makes a big difference to being able to sit longer on that safu, on the cushion here, and to withstand all these messages that come in. And by doing that, with these energies, what I also see is that every poke in the past, or every sort of cramp that I sort of resisted, the mind sees it as a negative feeling or something negative, unpleasant, unwholesome. And then this kind of negative, unwholesome thought will arise. So in the past, maybe I have more thoughts that I was really annoyed with things, either myself, of other people, or things that happened in life, or, when you read the news, there's plenty of things that you could get upset about. And it seems to me that, not being aware of that in the past, and a lot of restless energy created this path for me, like the becoming path. Like if I would have to visualize it, life, I have to visualize it. My life moves forward. I'm the restless being, right? That always going forward, and I always want to do something, right? It doesn't matter. Meditation is also part of that. Okay, I'll do meditation now. And if I wasn't aware of all that, what happens is that I have this inbuilt energies or feelings or tendencies that I can use. And these are, things that I can grab. So, for instance, now I can use a clock, some water, tissues. This, I cannot use, let's say, bacon and eggs. They're not here. Or a pizza or something else. Or that fan is too far. So in my immediate being, there are these emotions, moods, thoughts that is here. And with all these sort of unaware bodily feelings, they sort of push me in a way and activate certain things, So if the path is in front of me, and I'm so restless, and I sort of want to move forward, do things, the only thing I can do are all the things that I have. I cannot do things that I don't have. Like in the past will be patience, I don't have any patience for anything in the past. I mean, some of you can still see that, but it was very difficult. No patience for anything. I'll just snap at people, talk to people very directly, and say, what do you mean? What do you mean? Why are you not doing that? Okay, nonsense. Okay, what about you, Which, I quite like my life at the time, like that. I find, especially when I was working, was, appreciated, So I keep developing that. And I could see that is just my future. My future is just the things that you have and also have developed. So going back to that when I was 18 with my presentation and talking to people, that is something I had. I could do that. Also get nervous, but differently. And I could see that with meditation or the way I learned it or present moment, there were new things being developed. I suddenly had more things at my disposal that I could use. And often, patience is one. Observing is another one. Observing is not something I would say the wider way of observing oneself, my own actions, my own speech, my own thoughts, my intention, Not able to see my own intention. That was also one of the big ones. I was just doing things out of, I think it's the right thing to do. And then, of course, then later on you regret and you're a bit muddle-headed why you did things like that. But now, observing intention is also part of the things that I, at times could do and use. And that's the thing in front of me now. Like when I want to, with my restless nature, I want to do things. There are things I can pick up and use now. And not all of them are, I was talking to with guests the other day, like games, you have levels, right? People that play games, you get an axe, you find an axe somewhere, you have to slay and kill zombies or something, and then he drops an axe. You pick up the axe and put it here. Oh, I have an axe, I have a sword, a shield. And what you use with that is like, okay, when you want to find, you pick an axe and you whack them, right? But these axes in those games, for those that don't play games, there's also levels. The more you use it, the more experience you get, so the more better it becomes. Or you pick up a better axe, and it becomes level 2, level 3, level 10. So also, what is in front of me, things that comes at you, also have levels, if you want to see it like that. Sadness or anger. Level 1 anger, easy to conquer. Level 10 anger depends on your, do you have an axe that is level 10 as well? Otherwise, you can't defeat it or take it down or be present with it. So too, for me, I can see that there's a lot of practice going on, like, with patience and present moment, sitting down. It took time. It took a lot of time. I mean, initial insights, you might have insights, and I hope many of you as well. It's like, oh, you had the meditation experience. That is it. This is it. And that's like feeling like, you find an axe, and suddenly you have, it's instead of this kind of stick, you have an axe, you just whack it and, the wood splits. Oh, easy. And you suddenly had this insight that works, that works in calm, pacifying mind, or things that you were, you have a lot of thoughts, worry, anxiety, and suddenly it disappeared. And hopefully you realize what it was, that it was this axe. And often also I didn't know what has happened. But I keep doing it, you find like, oh, if you pick up this thing, this actually works. And what also doesn't, like the levels, the more you use it, the more familiar you are. And that's, I think, what a lot of my teachers have told me, that, you have to keep practicing different techniques, different ways, and to find how to use these things. They become multifunctional. One of the classics is, for instance, metta, meditation, loving kindness. And maybe to a lot of people, like, what doesn't, how does that work? It doesn't work. Maybe it's because we have anger, level 100, and then you start using metta with level half or 0 or 1. Yeah, that's not going to work, So it takes time. It takes time in one way to be aware of the level of anger, how to deal with anger. And it takes time to cultivate and develop metta or any of the meditation practices. And if you really look at the level 100 anger, I have to confess I did shout today at some particular person here today because of a need. But I not often have anger thoughts or angry thoughts. I'm more the restless, inquisitive, want to fix things, change things thoughts, which is also quite annoying to people. And these are thoughts, there were, let's say, level 100 in the beginning, and, sitting on a cushion and I have all these ideas, and the phone is going on and off all the time. It's really difficult to sit still, and be aware and observe. So one of the things that I just explained is being aware of the body, being aware of the thoughts. Or you can say be more in harmony with oneself, sitting. For instance, what I had to stop doing is, for instance, taking a lot of caffeine or eating a lot of sugar before coming here. It's just a recipe for disaster for myself. For some people, it's a lot of like getting awake. But for me, it's like, no, it's too much. So I be careful not doing that. And then the other thing is to watch the messages. These messages coming in. And in the past, I would attend to most of them. But then I start developing also, because you have this peace of mind a little bit more and more. What are the messages you should react on? And what should you just forget about? Okay, ding, 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 come in. I mean, in meditation, I try at least to ignore all of them, except the one, try to stay in the present, go back to your meditation object. But during the day, there are all these thoughts and things coming. And then you sort of have to, watch these things and, all right, these messages or these things in my arsenal, the anger, the one with the anger, the one with the sadness and stuff like that. Okay, leave them, it's okay. Or actually, I'll also more and more I leave the, like the things I want to change and fix things also, I leave them more and more. And don't react on them and just, then the phrase, because after a while you practice like that, or I practice, and I wonder like, I become passive, I don't know what to do. I feel sort of pointless and lifeless, and that's not me, that's not what I am. And I thought, I don't want to do anything now, and I just want to sleep the whole day, and And then I was thinking, that maybe this is how a lot of people feel here, because I'm one of the active ones, and I'm always thinking, you don't want to do anything here. That's sort of my world, right? And I felt a sense of dread, a sense of, also unhappiness, and this is also what comes, It's very much trained to do what I want, think what I want, say what I want, eat what I want, etc., etc. And as soon as you don't do that, other things are happening. Like in the case of public speaking or speaking to people, will be nervousness, anxiety, not knowing what to say, sweating, bodily uncomfortableness. But in the case of not be able to follow my thoughts is boredom, no direction in life, depressed a bit maybe, like, there's no sense in any of this. And the kind of energies or things that I've often, like I can say that most of the time I haven't actually experienced that in my life. It's not something I relate myself with any of that, because I, with all these messages, I have enough things that I would like to do and at any time. And in the beginning, I would then sort of start doing things and then regretting it, because then it seems like the messages multiply again, stop doing it, and then the message disappear, and I get this sense of dread again. And starting it, stopping it, starting it, stopping it, and stopping it for a long time, and not be able to bear it. Like for people that know the winter retreat, in the good old days, the winter retreat was very nice for 2 weeks. After that, it was just one hell realm for 2.5 months. Like, wow, so bad. I remember Ajahn Narindo came in, and then he makes some tea, and I was like, Ajahn, how are you doing? And I remember he telling me at the last 2 weeks of the winter retreat, he says, I wish that it goes longer. I was like, is he mad that he says something? I said, like, 2 months ago, I was hoping and wishing that it was over, but, I just grit my teeth to survive. And that's why also you see a lot of us start creating projects great projects during the winter retreat. Like for those that have done the winter retreat, you see one of the monks or nuns or anagarics suddenly doing something in the monastery or in a workshop, working at things, very important. And I also have the most brightest and best ideas in the winter retreat that I have to do. And I think it's only once, like maybe last year, that I started to finally feel like, oh, that was nice, 3 months, but not 1 day more, but that was good enough. So it took quite a long time, to pacify and get used to that. Because in the mind trains, and the mind is the forerunner of all things. I train my mind. We all can do that, and whether you do it consciously or not consciously, in good and bad. And that's how I see it. Carrot and a stick. Carrot, doing better in the past. When as a lay person, doing more, ambitious, and moving out in a discomfort zone, being able to perform whatever in that environment more is good. And anything that holds you back, anything that holds you back is bad. So keep sort of hitting myself, if I was a horse rider and there's a horse in front of me, you give a carrot when he does well, and you hit him when he doesn't do well. And that's sort of like the feeling of following up the messages, doing all these things, and then if I didn't attend to them, if I was sitting down, what's the stick? No, very uncomfortable. No. And it's also very much conditioned after a while. I noticed that, and I could trace it quite back to how my upbringing. You can say, some people will say just blame your parents, and in some way that's right. But it's also, what choice do you have? You're being brought up by the people you're there with. I grew up in my family has their own business, and I remember, when I was 8 or 9, I'm 40, so I was in the late 80s, for the people that want to know. And in the late 80s, one of the things of kids to do was sitting, crouching down like this in front of the television and just mom yourself down and watch it. And also fighting with my sister. I had a younger sister who can, use the remote and zapping, right? Who's the remote boss? That was always the fight we had at home. And of course, I was aware. I lived in, we had a restaurant. We lived above the restaurant, around it. And often you know that parents are busy with something. And I remember, am I exaggerating? 8, 10. Let's say 10, 9, 10. I was sitting down there and busy fighting with my sister and watching television. And my father goes into the living room and says, "Hey, come." I said, "Oh no. What? Go do wash up." I'm like, "What? Wash up?" And then, okay. And you go up to wash up. And then, washing up in a restaurant, right? It's all these things are coming. A bit like what you guys do, but then every weekend and then by yourself. And then and it keeps coming. You guys can do it all in one go, but it's like you don't know how busy it will be. And, if you have ever been to a restaurant and you've never done that work, just imagine everything you order has to go back and get cleaned, whatever you order, right? And everyone comes at different times, and everyone orders different things, and everything is just dirty, and you have to, clean all this up. I remember the dread I had, and the fear that, next weekend was like, oh, he doesn't ask. And then, of course, he asks, and no, I don't need to ask. Oh, and then you ask. Because at that time, the first time he asked, I give him credit for it, that we had young teenagers at the time that, you pay them a few guilders at those times, and they will come and, do the job, part-time job, all fair and square. And they didn't show up at that time, and I was called in. And stupid as I am at the time, again, stupid, I would say, I did too well of a job that my father says, "Wow, my kid can do it by himself. And I normally have to pay 2 kids to do that. How about you doing it?" But he didn't tell me that, but he just, without announcing, just come and do it. my Chinese parents did not have a culture of, in the weekends go and play with friends or something. So we were always screwed at home, There's no, like we were always there, basically. And soon I found myself all my weekends from my 10th, 11th, 12th, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, doing that, working in the restaurant. And you can imagine that the mind that I have, want to be good, want to be praised, don't want to be blamed, want to be, I had this problem. I guess not everyone have that, but in some way, shape or form, you want to do well. And I have trained myself. After I come here, I realized that being active is good, doing something is good, not doing something is bad. So how that came across, like before I could see all these messages and being sort of a bit more like, oh, it's happening in my mind. Things were just more given, like whatever I thought, that was how I thought, not thinking as a message. It was just how I am, So in the first few years, I think it took a few years, I will be running around and doing things, and I see some of you, very happy to see some of you, and I see a few in the garrix, and monks as well still, busy doing all kinds of things in the monastery and being vocal about it and changing this. So I delight in that. Because I see myself in the past doing that. And I remember in the monks area, we have what we call a common room. And it's a place, maybe, I'm guessing maybe 8 by 4 meters, But yeah, actually what you have also in the lounges here, it's similar size. And we can make our own tea and whatever, and drinks, and sit down and have a chat with people. I remember very vividly during the morning, like the whole day, I will be the one walking out up and down on that way, to go back through whatever, and then walking out. And I will see monks sitting down there at a time. I was like, oh, all these people doing nothing, sitting down the whole time. They're so lazy. That's just messages coming in, right? And being useless and, don't do anything, basically. All these messages coming in, and I read them all, and I just... Yeah, that's how it is, right? World is like that. I'm the one that's active. I'm doing a lot of things. And all you guys are sitting down there doing nothing and having tea or something. But when I'm sitting down, because I also, at one time I have to sit down because I cannot go on forever, I'm resting, taking a break between all my important things that I'm doing. I'm not like all them doing nothing and being lazy, When I'm sitting down and having coffee and having a chat, it's all purposeful and worthwhile, and I deserve it, and all that kind of stuff. That took me a while to see that. It took me a while again, if we go back, with the energies in the body, the messages that come in, staying put, restlessness coming up, being aware of that, and not believing all these things that are coming, all these tools that I have that was thrown in my mind, and the path and the horse that were going always in a certain direction. It's like the carrot that I used to give, to do more, take it away. Or give half of it, or give them something not nice, put something in like a rotten carrot that, when you do it, you're like, oh, it's not that pleasant anymore, Like certain things that I start doing become less rewarding. And then when I'm not doing it, the stick that I had make it less strong. So the feeling of not feeling pleasant, being useless, just leave those thoughts aside. It's easy to say, but it's sort of the same practice that you do with restlessness or the thoughts that are coming in, and also the same thoughts about the other things, and just staying with it. Let it come and pass. And in the beginning, maybe very, levels, you were very good at, or I was very good maybe at the restless part, but not at the feeling useless part. And after a while, the things that you learn here, you can apply also on this, and it takes some time. Because this doesn't arise before I could understand this part. The restlessness part goes to let it be, and then this counter measurement comes up. And it goes a bit like this the whole time, like once you get this a little bit better, then you become more restless in that level, not as restless as it used to be, but still you could feel very restless, and then it goes down, goes down. It's like, the axe and the sword, if that is, you use a sword for restlessness and an axe for feeling hopeless or lazy. you have to level them both up and keep doing that, and it takes time. And then you have this existential crisis even worse, because the more you do it, you feel like, what is the point of life? Why should I do anything? This is just restlessness, pure restlessness, and this is pure dreading. Neither I could follow. Why should I do anything, right? I mean, I'm not in that level that I have, that level, that I'm not following anything, but there will be moments in time or periods in time that when you do these things, you feel this sense of you're losing it, or I don't know what I should do in life, and it's just, luckily there are, in the monastery, you have this routine. You just come to the puja, there's not much to think about, and you go and eat, you've got to eat, and you've got to take a shower and go to the toilet. And luckily, in my lay life, I would have been more focused on purpose. Am I creating your own purpose and what I want to do? And the monastery can just turn off the, if you don't really know what to do, there's still a lot of things that you have to do, which just makes life quite easy. And one day I asked Ajahn Narindo about it, and I felt like, I don't know what to do, I feel so lazy, and I want to sleep the whole day and the whole afternoon, and don't know, I feel no sense of doing anything. So very much this thing, right, that this dreading and coming up. Ajahn Narindo tells me a story about when he was a younger monk, and we had Sunday talks like what we do have now. And apparently they only had these 2 toilets at the public, next to the library, there's these 2 toilet blocks. And apparently there was a lot of people coming, people use the toilet, and it's just how it works. The more people use something, the more dirty it gets. And he was there cleaning up after, at the Sunday talks by himself, cleaning that thing. And he told me that, one day he has this thought, oh, great. I'm so, great that I'm the only one cleaning the toilets here, like how great, how fantastic I am. I can relate to that. And he says, when he realized that one day, again, the messages are coming in and you have to realize these. He says the trick is get rid of these thoughts, but don't stop doing it. Doing, the cleaning of the toilet. I was like, right, that's good, that's good. Then I realized, wow, yes, that is difficult. It's difficult for me to do something that I think it's good, that I think, people will love it or like it or whatever. I just don't expect myself to praise myself or other people praising me or, expecting something, expectations of oneself and someone else. That is really difficult. To me, it is very difficult because I have programmed myself very much into carrot and stick, and telling myself if I am a good presenter, in my business career, then I will get a lot of rewards, and a lot of the other skills that I had to learn. But now you actually should do things that are right, the right thing to do. That's kind of difficult. Just do something that is right at the right time. It's very difficult. To me, it was very difficult, or it's still very difficult. Like sometimes you feel very tired. I remember often, after George Sharp's funeral a few days ago, I had a whole day of things. We also were doing the wash-up, and before that, something was happening, and in the morning something was happening. I had to help preparing the setup. I mean, it was not a very big deal, but the whole day you were occupied. And then you have the funeral. You sit down there and doing all these things together. And the first thing you want to do after that finish is to run away, right? Get out of here. But I still had some time and some energy. And usually I don't help with setting things up. I felt, okay, let's help out. And that is something I could see that has changed. That if I can do it, I will do it. I'll try to do it. And if I cannot, that's also fine. So if I would walk away, if people later will say, Ajahn Vinita was very instrumental, and the sisters to set it up and clear it up. And Ajahn Vinita will maybe later say, hey, where were you? I was the only one there and didn't help. I will feel a bit bad, but that's another message. And I'll try to do better. But, at the time, I might have thought, I was really tired, or I was really not able to do so. So then I walk away, and then, like whatever you do, you get praised and blamed for both things. And whatever it is good, there's also bad. And it depends really much on how people see it. And there are always, absolutes, that certain things, maybe there's absolutely bad, everyone will agree. But most things, they are not, And in the monastery, I used to live my life more about finding things, to do that get praised. And what happened is that I overwork myself, get burned, get maybe also a bit unhappy, because then you get not enough praise. You do all these extra things, but no one's looking at me and telling me how great I am or what a fantastic job I did. The worst is when people start blaming you and telling you, why did you move this? Why did you do that? Why did you not ask? And I remember, all the anagarics, I used to do the larder as well, and the stores. And I was very eager, and a lot of people have seen me in the afternoon doing all kinds of things there. They can tell me I single-handedly changed everything, where things were and how things should be organized. Without asking, without consulting, everything was better in my mind. And of course I got the whole monks and nuns on me, and wow, why did you move this and change this and whatever. And I feel so dreadful, because I was expecting a carrot, right? Lots of carrots from all of you. And only I felt I was getting hit all the time. And I thought it was so unfair, because I spent all this work and effort and thoughts, and it was all great. Look at this, like whatever, you can imagine whatever story you have about yourself. How you do things is better than what other people would have thought. And I just couldn't see it. I remember that day, I walked, crawl to Ajahn Sumedho. Ajahn Sumedho was still there in 2010. Oh, I feel so bad and so, hopeless, and everyone is blaming me, and I don't know what to do. And I didn't cry though, but it felt like that in myself, right? It felt crying, like. And Ajahn Sumedho was, and at the time, Sumedho was saying, with a big smile. He's telling me, oh yeah, that's a feeling, that's a feeling that's really bad, that's a very uncomfortable feeling. And then he say, what is worse? I say, what is worse? What can we be worse? If you didn't do it and people blame you for something, that is worse. And I was like, oh, that's right. That's correct. And he says, it doesn't matter. Like whatever, even if you did it, and people blame you, and if you didn't do it and people blame you, it's equally, unpleasant. And he say, what is pleasant? It's being praised, whether you did it or not. If you didn't do it, it's also good. And then I sort of realized, yeah, so true. Why did I wrap myself in my own world to praise myself and to blame myself? And the outside world, let's call it, and praise myself and blame myself, and waiting for praise and blame. And there was a lot of mechanism in my mind, in my future. It was like that. Why am I walking here and not there? Because here are the carrots to be reaped and expected. And over there, only sticks can be expected. So my future, my becoming, every moment, every day, next day, I filled it up with all these pathways that led to all the so-called carrots that I could have. And they don't always plan out, as you know, but it's a bit like statistics. Just keep walking on the things that you do more and more. And that's quite true with what I would call meditation. When you walk on it, it feels very much that you're being punished. This is how my experience is very uncomfortable and very unpleasant. But I did notice, and luckily I would say, I did notice that it takes more time to get a carrot, let's say, my own internal carrot. And we need a little bit of faith, in that faith in order to dare to trot on things that you don't feel comfortable, don't feel nice about it, feels maybe counterintuitive. And that is sort of like the sort of brainwashing, let's say, that we have to do internally, or that I have to do internally, to try. Often, I would say, try often what the other elders have told me, and to, like when I surely disagree with people to do, certain things, and they say, yeah, please, try to do that. And I'm like, oh, that's going to go wrong. That's not going to go like that. And, sometimes it's true, but sometimes it's not true. Sometimes it's not that sure what you do, that what you think is right. And especially with meditation, I have found undeniable. If the Buddha said that the jewels, something precious, like lots of money, let's say, for people, or where is that to be found? How do you win the lottery here? It's what they say in the Sangha. The Sangha is deep, meaning a community of people that practice, particularly, people wearing robes, but anyone who practice. You don't know who practice well, who practice rightly, insightfully. You don't know. But what happened, and what I have experienced here so far, is that when you come to a bottleneck in your meditation practice, try to ask any of us here. Try to ask the Ajahn. And as Ajahn Suchito came, Ajahn Vijiro. That is something I found I cannot ask anywhere else. I have, if I go out and I visit my friends in Holland and, or people that are rich or poor or important people, not important people, I have found a higher percentage, like good results, let's say, and appropriate results when I ask one of, my monastic friends. And I would say that is precious to me because I'm very concerned about my own path. I can see it's still filled with holes, troubles, unhappiness sometimes, self-criticism, anxiety, unwholesomeness, also happiness, short-term happiness, a lot of short-term happiness, leading maybe to less happier states after that. And more often than not, when I listen to, read books, Buddhist, or Dhamma, or listen to talks, listen to what the Ajahn says, or the questions and answers I have with some people here, often has led to, really, is it something, I don't trust that. Okay, but I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, and I'll try. Not everything works, but, many things have worked by now that I have. If you have asked myself, based on my rational mind and my ability and skills, I would not have predicted that it will lead to results that I cannot even fathom what that could be. Meaning, like, it's very similar to, at one time in my life, I was, I'm not like an athlete kind of type, not really exercised a lot in my life, but somewhere in my 20s, a lot of coffee and fast food, junk food, and driving cars and being a sales guy. I started to have to balance that with a bit of exercise. So I found myself some kind of exercise thing. Every week I joined a group and I'm quite fanatic about it. And, that's how my personality is, very, very into it, fanatic. I remember that I became a bit more fit and I could, let's say, do the exercise for more than an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. And of course, how good am I? But actually what the hidden benefit for me was at the time that I realized was I slept better. When I sleep, I wake up, the body is just great, more solid, it worked better. Plus, by sleeping better, I enjoyed the day better. And I also could feel my body better, like what's wrong with it, etc. So that is something that no one told me, that it would be like that. And that is something that I could relate to in this kind of practice. Sometimes they give you all these crazy things here to do, like for me it was really crazy to just say, oh, just don't follow that thought, or just stay, be quiet, or, Ajahn, what do I do after this? Oh, just watch it, It's like, oh, God, can you not tell me something else? No, continue. And then I have this kind of fantastic insight. I remember, by the way, I almost got enlightened, one of those thoughts. And I was asking for the last 5% what I should do, right? I knocked on Ajahn Narinindo's door, and I remember at 6 o'clock in the morning, I was all robed up and very official, and I was still in the garage. Knock, 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 knock. And I opened the door, and I remember Ajahn Narindo looking at me like, what is this guy doing here? Put the seat down, bow 3 times, and ask Ajahn. And then I was planning to inherit this kind of esoteric teaching, the last 5% of how to get enlightened. And then he gave me this kind of crazy story about when he was young and he was in Chithurst and there was the full moon and so where is this going? And then he's like, oh, right. And it was the perfect day for his enlightenment. There's he going. He's telling me the story. And then he goes on, there was this in the garage and someone knocks on my, because there was all night sitting and, one of the Ajahn, I don't know, maybe you know the story, but knock on the shoulder and Ajahn, okay, what is it? Yeah, we have this anagaric. And it's like, yeah. And he's went loopy in Chithurst. And can you go and have a look after him? And he was like, but enlightenment, this was the day, he said. Okay, good. And he went and then go and sit down there because, sometimes we have monastics that have experienced things and it's very shocking to them and then they go funny. That's nice to talk about it later, by the way, and gossip about it a little bit. But at the time, it's a lot of care. And anyway, Ajahn Amaravati at the time, Tananamaram, had to go there and watch over him because he could do stupid things. So he sat down there and talked to him and, and whatever. Long story short, in the morning he walked back. I guess there were a change of shifts. And he was saying something like, oh, right. And then he thought about it. Oh, what about my enlightenment? And there's where the story stopped. I was like, yes. And then he said, oh, please go. And I walked away and I'm thinking like, what? He didn't tell me anything. And I have to say, of course, after maybe a year or something, or I have to sort of, oh, right. I now know what he was trying to tell me, but I couldn't see at the time. But these are helpful, I would say, that, Ajahns or people that have practiced more or longer have stories that can share with us that maybe went through the same kind of experiences and in their own practice and can tell us it's okay, like when I felt dreaded, remember that I asked Ajahn Narindo as well and he tells me that story of the toilets. Also in a different way, he tells me it's okay, there's nothing wrong with you. That's something we all experience. That's all, it's okay. Whatever your experience is normal. Don't freak out. And that is faith for me. Faith giving rise to just continue. Just continue the struggle, right? But just continue. It will be all right. Just stay on and stay with it. And I think that is very helpful. That's been very helpful to me for a restless being as myself. To keep being reminded about all these levels, the skills that I have here to level them up, just keep doing what I was doing and trust that. And I think that, what Luang Por Sumedho often says, trust the awareness is one of these tools, that universal tool that, that's not an axe, that is like a multifunction, weapon, that you can use for anything. And it is really up to us in some ways, up to us to practice, up to us to have faith, to cultivate, to get the faith up, the faith faculty, and by talking, asking, practicing, teaching, talking to people, all of that. You don't know what will work for you, but all of that is all helpful, and that has been very helpful to me. And also, I would advise people also put yourself in more uncomfortable situations, things that you cannot do, but do it in steps. Like one of the things I remember when I was, when you were doing the 8 precepts, when I became an Anagarika, I remember Nacha, Gita, Vadita, Visukkha, Dasana, Mahalagan, the whole thing. I can never learn that. That's too long. I can never learn that. Remember, sitting down, you have to in front, you have to do it with the Ajahn before you come an Anagarika. Now I look back, now we have to memorize pages and pages full of stuff. That's the thing. Steps, keep doing it. And I would encourage all of you, whatever you have difficulties with, stay with it. Do it one time, with the messages. Watch yourself. Keep doing it. And be honest to oneself. It's like, if you feel hopeless, despair, is it really hopeless and despair? Or is it, one message become 2 messages and 3 messages? It's not maybe the 1,000 per minute, but is it, do you get some peace, some awareness around it? And I think that is brutal honesty is important in the sense of, it goes slow, but it's going. And encourage oneself and have faith in yourself to keep going. So here I would like to end it, and maybe also dedicate all the merits of my practice to my elder sister, for tomorrow's her birthday. Okay, Eva.